It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is officially the day I know that everyone has been waiting for. It is November 5th, the NFL trade deadline day.
That's what it is. The NFL trade deadline. Yes.
And man, what a day. What a day it has been. No, it is officially one of the things that we look forward to with this show that we have been doing since 2021. We are officially here for our first election day live celebration. And boy,
I don't know. I don't know if I'd say celebration or not, but I mean,
well, it depends on who you ask. As always, my name is Sean Phillips. I'm joined alongside my friend and co-host, Mr. Andrew J. Van Beber, and we are keeping up with the sweepstakes. I'm sure that many of you guys at home are as well. And man, I tell you, we were just talking about it before we went live. Depending on what news station you are watching is the one that is telling you who's winning what. But I know, V, you probably have it pulled up in front of you there. If you want to kind of over.
It depends on who you want to go with.
Who's
right?
winning?
If you're looking on our screen right now, if you're watching our screen right now, this is from Axios. They kind of the ones. They're a source who feed people like NPR and AP and like that. They're kind of a right now. They're showing Trump at 178 electoral votes to Harris's 99. If you go to Fox right now has Trump at 119 to 113 for Harris. CNN right now has 154 for Trump and 53 for Harris. So a lot of it depends on who, like you said, who you're listening to and who you're going with. I told one of our buddies who we've had on the show before, Michael Vincent, was texted me just about 30 minutes ago. He's like, "Man, who's going to win this?" And I said, "Brother, it's I think that this is going to be one of the closest elections in history." Sites like Axios, like what you're seeing on the screen there, Axios is, out of all of these, is probably being the most conservative and realistic. But at the same time, you have to realize that during this, what is it? It's 8:30 right now. So 8:30 on Tuesday night, and you've got what? They've called. I'm trying to see here how many states they've actually called. They've called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10, 11, 12, 13. They just called Ohio for Trump. So they've called 13. I'll take that back. 17 for Trump. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for Kamala. So these other states, like if you go to, right now they're showing, Axios is showing Missouri for Harris, but you only have 20% of the votes counted. So it's it depends on who you're going to watch and who you're going to listen to and what you're going to, who you want to go with. So
sure. Are there any standout surprises for you off the rip? And even if it was one that you thought the candidate was going to win, but by sheer margin, are there any surprises that right off the bat are sticking out to you?
Right now, the fact that right now with Georgia, with 75% of the vote reported in Georgia right now, so Trump has 2.1 million and Kamala has 1.8 million. That margin, you got to remember, in 2020, Joe Biden won Georgia by a little under 12,000 votes.
Yeah.
and with 75% of the 75% of the votes counted in Georgia, and he's got an 800,000 vote lead. That surprises me. The Ohio one, when you look at Ohio right now, when I'm pulling up Ohio, with 60% of that, and that's another one that Biden won by a little less than 100,000 in 2020. So those two right off the bat. I mean, the fact that Florida was the first state, you guys, I mean, we had talked about that. What time were we saying that? Was that like 7
That
o'clock?
was
Travis,
yeah, that was pretty quick.
Yeah, and so I mean, they called Florida first, and I was so surprised at how quick they called that in Florida. But it's really it really surprises me. Those two right off the bat. Right now, Fox is being conservative. They're not calling Georgia for Trump yet because they've still got some big counties that they still have yet to call. So,
sure,
when you look at what's your takeaway right now, just as you're looking at this, what's your surprise take right now?
Well, so my thoughts on it right now, just based off of kind of what we've seen, um, some of these swing states, and this is just based off of what polling was saying in the last couple of weeks leading up to it, based off of, I'm going to say polling that I would see from CNN, MSNBC, typically your more left-leaning news station. I saw Fox. I would see Fox, PBS, ABC tends to lean a little bit more left, but I would see with PBS, NPR, Fox, they would still have Harris leading in a lot of those swing states, but they'd be by much smaller poll numbers versus MSNBC, CNN, ABC. I would see there would be a lot larger Harris over Trump in the polls. Now, what we are seeing in a lot of these key swing states, and now there's a lot to still be reported out of Pennsylvania. I do think that Harris will probably win Pennsylvania. I haven't looked. Last time I checked, it was 55% reporting, I do believe, in North Carolina, and Trump had jumped ahead. He was ahead at 55% of the vote, at least the last time I looked at it about 45 minutes ago.
So North Carolina, just to update you on that, North Carolina just updated 58.2% of the expected votes are in. Trump has 51 to 47 for Harris right now.
Okay, so
that number's changed.
Number, that number's changing. I am surprised at what they've already called Ohio for Trump. I'm surprised that was that quick, that the margin was that large. I'm trying to pay attention on some of the exit polling numbers that are coming out, and they're typically seeing, at least from what I have seen in some of the exit poll numbers, that at least specifically in independents, that in almost every key swing state, it seems that Republicans are up anywhere between 5 and 6 points amongst independent voters who might have previously voted Democrat during the last election. So you could say all of those signs would potentially maybe swing things more in Trump's favor. But again, the tough part about this one is that this does kind of feel a little bit eerily similar to the 2020 election. Again, it was a very close election, as we know. But what, again, frustrated a lot of people, especially on Donald Trump's side of the coin in the 2020 election, is some of them went to bed thinking that they had won. And then magically there were, not magically, but there were votes, late counted votes in a couple of these key swing states that swung it in the favor of President Biden. So my guess is we are hoping that, the Republicans, the red, are hoping that this time around there was a bigger turnout from Republican voters. And on top of that, there was a lot of I've seen it this election there was a lot more early voting done by Republicans.
Yeah, I've really, I'm, you know, I'm really, so I voted this afternoon. I voted,
Hmm.
Briley had basketball this morning, and I was, so I couldn't go. I usually like going in the morning because I'm first in line and just get through there, get it done, and get it over with.
Yeah,
When we went in this, so when we went in this afternoon, there was quite a group that was there this afternoon. The parking lot was full, and for Louisiana, I was really surprised at how many were still there. Uh,
sure.
the A lot of the down ballot questions in Missouri are going to be interesting. I know for those you have to wait till the day after to get those, and we'll talk about a couple
Hmm.
of those here in a little bit. But I have never, I've never. So this is going to be 92, 96, 2000, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So this is my ninth election that I voted in. Okay.
Okay.
And the last two elections, I voted libertarian without batting an eyeball.
Hmm.
So I actually saved the presidential vote till the very last on this one.
Okay.
And it's not. I I sat there and I looked at the ballot and I really shook my head because for me, and this goes back to the discussion that you and I and Travis were having on earlier, and Travis and I kind of are relaying the same sentiment. Um, you know, when people say you're voting for the lesser of two evils, you know,
Hmm.
my whole thing is why do I have to vote for why do I have to vote for
Evil.
evil? You know, why am I having to vote for evil? And so, and people already, I pretty much told everybody, I voted libertarian. Is all you're throwing. And today and I honestly didn't know for the first time since 2012. I honestly didn't know how I was going to vote because I was really running through every scenario in my head. I'm running through. I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, so if I vote Trump, so then I'm standing, because I've been on record on this show saying, I like what the Republicans have to do for the economy. I like where the Republicans stand on the border, on trade, on foreign relations. Um, you know, Democrats. I mean, there's just not a lot that you. And one of the things that I'm seeing, and you brought a little bit up about the exit polls. One of them, and everybody was saying this on everybody I've been watching so far tonight. The chief concern in a lot of these exit polls done by Fox, done by CNN, um, they say one of the chief concerns that they have that these exit polls were showing is the safety of democracy,
Hmm.
and that, to me, and tell me what you think. I mean, to me, that sounds like that's an echo from the Harris camp. After her trying to play the whole January 6th, banging that drum as hard as she can possibly bang it. And to me, my doomsday side, I'm just like, whoever wins the, whoever wins the election tonight starts the Civil War on Monday. I I I still believe that whichever side wins, I'll be surprised if the other side doesn't contest it in some way, shape, or form. Both for
A hundred
Republican or
percent.
both for Republican and Democrat, because
Mhm.
you know, I, to me, it just. I mean, what do you when you hear that? I mean, in the 2020 election, the economy was and this is again what I've been gathering. The economy was the chief concern in 2020. After we were in the heart of COVID, we were going through all that stuff, and now democracy is becoming this overwhelming concern of people. I mean, what's your take on that?
No, I'm in I don't knock my stuff over, in full agreement. You know, we saw what happened after the election in 2020. Um, the repercussions, and you're right. I feel like during that period of time, uh, the Biden administration was able to capitalize on COVID,
Yeah,
and kind of
played on that
go
fear.
into.
Yeah,
But my question is, if you look at things of how were things before COVID hit, and then post COVID after the Biden administration had kind of taken things over, because it's, again, politicians are going to politic. When you listen to the Harris campaign speak, or when Biden was still running, they talk about, they'll talk about their numbers, how now at this point in time inflation numbers are low, and they'll they'll go
well, they'll
on,
make it say what
and
they
then
want.
but
Yeah,
when it's like, hey, but why did it take so long, and they'll say, oh well, we had a pandemic that you know like gosh, it's such a straw man argument that I see, and kind of subverting, but I'm also, they do this in the same capacity for the economy, is we have Democrats that are talking now about how immigration, the numbers of the amount of people that are getting into the United States in the month of October, were the same amounts as during the last month of Trump's presidency. Well, they're saying, so what? And their straw man argument is, oh, so you're saying Trump didn't do a good job protecting the border? It's like, no, no, no. You have record numbers of immigrants coming in
mm-hmm.
during the 4 years of this, and then yes, now as we get closer, as we're in the last 6 months of election season, that's when we are doing all the work to get these numbers. Um, I think the same can be said about the economy, but at the same time, like, you know,
Yeah.
people that are voting for Donald Trump, um, also have to weigh out and talk about some of the other, like his tariff plan is not necessarily a good one.
No,
Um,
that scares me.
no,
That scares me as well.
it's a horrifying plan. So it's I think there's a lot to be said for when we look at the economy. Yeah, I know a lot of people were more comfortable when Trump was sitting president. Yes, I think the pandemic had a lot to do with how the economy went at the end of his presidency, and then as it's kind of gone into the Biden administration. But I'm just, as we look at the map now, and as things are going the way that they are, I'm interested to see how they continue. Um, and especially if Donald Trump is elected president, what are we going to see come January, once he is officially elected? If he is elected, what are the changes that are going to take place? And that, vice versa, if Kamala Harris is elected president, what changes are we going to see starting in January? Since she's sitting vice president now, are we going to see some of these changes start to be implemented on the tailor end of uh, Biden's tenure as president? Because that's a thing we kind of seem to forget about, is we still have a sitting president that's neither of these two individuals.
And nobody.
I think that.
And isn't it amazing that nobody's focusing on him at
No,
all?
I think that the sitting president has forgotten that he is the sitting president.
It's 9:45. It's
this rate.
9:45 in Washington D.C. Joe's already tucked in for the night.
Ben tucked in. He woke up at 6:45 p.m.
Oh my God.
So yeah, and I'm interested to see too, if the Harris campaign, if Harris loses this election, I'm interested to see what actions the president will take between now and January. Um, if any,
I was going to say, if any,
I'm with you.
If any, right?
Yeah, and depending on how large of a margin either candidate wins by, like if it's not necessarily like a neck and neck, like I've seen so many numbers that have gone, oh, Trump could win 270 and Kamala 268, vice versa, 270 for Kamala, 268 for Trump, depending on how some of these swing states go. And you go, okay, well, if it's that close, then obviously it's going to get loud. It is going to get loud on what we're hearing. However, what if it's a 4 or 5 state difference, like where it's like, hey, it doesn't matter. Not saying that it doesn't matter, but I'm saying that even if the other party would have won two, three, four more states, it wouldn't have mattered based off of the metrics of how far these other went. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to have a close election here. I know that the states that are being called now are more heavily in favor of Trump, but I am interested to see if based off what we saw on NPR, if he's going to get the 100 more electoral votes that he needs before the Harris campaign can pick up the slack.
And some interesting things that are now coming across. Just looked at CNN. The margin has actually closed in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So it's within 4%, which is what, and this is the amazing thing, that it's within 4%, which for once the polls are getting it. I mean, in every one of these polls, what we've been seeing, 4%, 4%, 4%, 4%.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, Missouri just turned colors, and so now Trump has just taken the lead with 23% of the precincts have voted now. Trump is now, which that wasn't going to be a surprise.
Yeah.
Iowa is a surprising one because now Harris is kind of starting to pull away in Iowa. Again,
Interesting. Okay.
That's with 20% of the vote in, and she's got a 53 to 45 lead there. One of what was I want to talk a little bit about. You did some polling this last week through your Facebook. Why don't you share a little bit about what you asked and what you got back?
Yeah, so I did just an internal poll on my Facebook and my Instagram post, just based off of my friend group, and my friend group is pretty diverse. I wouldn't say that the metrics exactly line up the same way that the demographic of the United States is broken down, but I have a lot of female friends. I have a lot of LGBTQ friends. I have lots of white friends, Black friends, Hispanic friends, Asian friends. Part of that comes with a lot of the organizations I've been involved with in my life, some of the jobs that I've worked in my life, and with me being in the military, you kind of have a plethora of different individuals in your life that kind of come and go. So I just ran a poll, and it was, hey, who are you voting for? And I gave several options. I gave 4 options for each. I put Harris, Trump, undecided, or neither. And based off of the metrics that I had between both of them, and I subtracted a couple folks, I had over 100 people vote. So this is just based off of 100 people that answered my question. 64%, around 64% was for Trump. I had 30% for Harris. I had about 5% for undecided, and the remaining like 1 or 2% was for neither. So that was like one or two people.
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
I think what surprised me off the rip, from the metrics that I saw, I had a number of, I was surprised, I guess in general, to see the amount of women that were voting for Trump. And that's not because I think that women are, anti-Trump, but it was just based off the narrative that at least I see, that what's in my algorithm, whether it's through Facebook, Instagram, X, whatever it is, the algorithm that I see is that typically his numbers are low. But I would say that of the women that, voted, I saw it was a pretty dead even split of 50-50 between the two. So I thought that his numbers amongst women, at least that were our friends or followers of mine, were higher. What also surprised me, of those women, I had of the 100 people that voted, 6 of them were Latino women. Every single one of the Hispanic women voted for Donald Trump. Every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of them picked Kamala Harris.
Really?
You know what? I take that back. I had one individual that did pick Harris. So I had 7. So I had one that did pick Harris. I'm wrong about that. But that was one of the big shockers for me. It was a 6-to-1 ratio
Women, that's
Hispanic women picking Trump
wow.
over Kamala Harris. It was a pretty even split amongst black males. African American males, it was pretty 50-50. Now, I can say those numbers might be a little, I don't know if skewed is the metric that I'm looking for, because a lot of those friends of mine that are African American are I've met a lot of them in the military. So that might have been why that number was, because I will say that most of, with the exception of I think maybe one or two, but most of the black men that are friends of mine that picked Harris, none of them are in the military. Not any of them were. Maybe the exception of one or two, but most of them are just people that I've met at jobs or I've met at leadership seminars or high school life, just things in general. White men, traditionally, yeah, those they were pretty much all for, not all for Donald Trump. There was a hefty margin, but I did notice the trends that I saw, at least amongst the friends that I have or followers that I have that picked Harris. I would say that of those that were white men or white with maybe Hispanic or another background, the individuals that picked Harris, they were from large cities. Friends from Los Angeles, Kansas City, some St. Louis, people that have gone to college, moved elsewhere. The bigger city individuals, white men, were picking Harris. Anyone that was in the rural community was typically leaning more towards Trump. And then even others that live in cities were still leaning towards Donald Trump as well. So
do you think it's fair to say
same with
that
the LGBTQ community? I had probably about 10 individuals that were LGBT that I know to be in the LGBTQ community, and I think 4 of them picked Donald Trump over over Kamala Harris. So
that's kind of a
were just individuals that I know, at least told me personally, or I just know by knowing them, are LGBTQ. So some of those numbers could be skewed another way or another if I wasn't sure of their sexual orientation. But at least of those individuals that I knew. So I guess I would say the biggest surprise for me was just the sheer amount of Latino or Hispanic women that were picking Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. And then that's just based off the narrative that I would see in trends and internal polling of how she was doing with the Hispanic voters versus how he was doing with Hispanic voters, and then especially women. So, but at the same time, I'm interested. I saw an article, and I've been told by several people, allegedly, there was a guy in Pennsylvania that helped like over 300,000 Amish people in the state of Pennsylvania registered to vote. So I'm interested to see how those metrics, shift things. So it's always like, I don't have any Amish friends on Facebook, so I can't, include them in my internal polling.
Oh my God.
So yeah. Okay. So I have a live update from NPR.
What are they saying?
NPR presidential results not yet called. We are still at 251. Harris is at 99. Trump is at 188.
Yep, that's what I've got. That's what Axios is saying.
Okay, and likely Democrat. Let's see here. All these are pretty same. Minnesota, at least. I won't get ahead of myself. Only 1% is reporting, but in Minnesota, 62% leaning towards Donald Trump 1.2%.
Yeah, 1.2%. I think what really shocks me about Minnesota is 339 votes for Robert F. Kennedy so far.
Well, and he and Robert F.
Michigan
Kennedy
too.
talked
Michigan
about
too. He has 3,700 votes in Michigan. So
and he even talked about he's gone on. I've seen several ads of his this week alone that were like, "Hey, I'm on the ballot in these states because they won't take me off. Do not vote for me." It was like, if you wanted to vote for me, put it towards Trump. Oh yeah, he straight up said you can go to his page now. It straight up says, if you want to see me in Washington, vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, because Trump will put him.
Yeah.
So that really, I had not that what you just said about the about the Amish thing. That's amazing. That's just straight amazing. Uh, Fox just updated their number 195, 117 for Trump, and CNN is at 162.81. So let's talk a little bit about some of these down issues on the Missouri ballot because we do have. And by the
Hmm.
way, thank you for all the folks who are joining us live tonight on TikTok. We've got quite a few there who are with us there on TikTok tonight. Thank you for joining us. Um, but some of the Missouri down ballot issues, there were one, two, three, four, five. So there were five different constitutional amendments and measures that were put up before the Missouri voters. Um,
Hmm.
Two of the big ones, I want to, first of all, Amendment 2 and Amendment 3 were the two big ones. Amendment 2, do you want to amend the Missouri Constitution to allow Missouri Gaming Commission to regulate licensed sports wagering, including online sports betting, gambling boats, professional sports betting districts, and mobile licenses to sport betting operators? So basically, um, allowing um, allowing for online betting because right currently, like if you want to go to FanDuel or
Hmm.
anything like that in MGM, anything like you can't do it in Missouri. Um, Amendment number 3, do you want to amend the Missouri Constitution to establish a right to make decisions about reproductive health care, including abortion and contraceptives, with any governmental interference of that right presumed invalid, remove Missouri's ban on abortion, allow regulation of reproductive health care to improve or maintain the health of the patient, require the government not to discriminate in government programs, funding, and other activities against persons providing or obtaining reproductive health care, and allow abortion to be restricted or banned after fetal viability except to protect the life of health of the woman. Um, Overall, when you look at the amount, St. Louis Post Dispatch a few weeks ago did an article on both of these issues. Um, the amount of money, and I should have wrote down the amount, but the amount of money that companies like FanDuel and they spent an ungodly amount of money
Mm. Oh
on
yeah.
on Amendment 2. Um, the only, of course, me being a part of Missouri State Teachers Association, we Missouri State Teachers Association was not totally 100% on board with this because of where they said the money was going to go to. And again, it's that whole thing of money's going to go to education and unlike the lottery, there's no way that they can divert this to another fund and that this is going to go directly to education. They can't replace. They said the same thing about lottery back when I first started teaching over 25 years ago.
Hmm.
When they were going to say, okay, we're going to, when they brought in Powerball, that was the big. Oh, this is going to generate more revenue. Uh, nah, not so much. Um, this is some of the things that they're said. Another wording on the ballot for that was state governmental entities estimate one-time cost of $660 million or $660,000, ongoing annual cost of at least 5.2 million, and initial license fee revenue of 11.75 million. So upfront cost for the Missouri voters would be somewhere, looks like a little bit over 18 million. But they said the revenue from this could range up to 29 million a year
Hmm.
for Missouri, whatever. Um, I, if they want to, Missouri's one of the, Missouri, unlike where I lived at in Illinois, Missouri has a balanced budget. Missouri has a, no matter how you shake it or shave it down, Missouri has a balance, and that's actually a constitutional amendment that came in 1992. I remember because that was one of the
Hmm.
first things I voted on, were term limits and balanced budget amendment that were added to the Constitution in 1992. Both of them were added that year, and so you know if it's going to generate revenue, I'm not going to go out tomorrow and get FanDuel, and I'm not going to, but for me, if it's something that's going to generate more revenue for the state And in the off chance, and this is my bias speaking, but in the off chance that it does generate more revenue for education, more power to them. I don't know
Mhm.
what's your thoughts on that?
No, I'm 100%. I don't care if every last tax dollar of sports betting would have gone to the transitioning of crawfish sexual orientation. I in the state of Missouri wouldn't have given a shit. Um, I, you
Oh,
know,
this.
I understand. Don't get me wrong. I completely understand why we would want the language of the bill to ensure, or the amendment to ensure that the, you know, to ensure that teachers and students and the education system is taken care of. I will never forget the Missouri Lottery. Was supposed to pay for A+ for
Yeah.
students, and I remember there was a,
Yeah.
a, a gap 2 years. I think it is now fixed. Yeah, it's been fixed,
Yeah, it's been
but there was a
fixed.
gap.
Yeah, right.
There was a gap due to, I'm not going to name any names. Cough cough. Governor Jay Nixon on
Oh,
individuals who did not properly use uh, that budget the way that it was supposed to be entailed, and fluffed certain pockets and helped out certain friends. Cough cough.
yes.
Governor Jay Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
But that has been fixed. So I understand the importance of wanting to make sure that funding is put into the right place. However, I'm also a firm believer, and maybe not a firm believer. So I said that wrong. But look, one thing is a proven fact, and that is that the tax revenue generated from sports betting is very, very, very profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am in the park. We need to ensure that those profits go to the right people. However, as bad as this might sound, that is something that we can fix. That is something that can get fixed over time. However, until we have sports betting legal, we won't be able to fix it. So, um, again, I have sports betted maybe twice in my life when I was in a state where it was legal. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it just made that day more enjoyable. And I sports betted all of $5
Yeah.
both times.
That's.
So it is not something, if you buy a scratcher, if you buy Powerball here and there, you could treat it the same way. Obviously, people that have gambling addictions are going to have
That's
gambling
yeah.
addictions.
That's what I was going to go to
Here's the
next.
thing about Missouri, though, too. Missouri is a very interesting state because we are only allowed to have casinos on bodies of water.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Yep.
know that casinos probably levied pretty hard against this passing.
Because it's going to take them out of the casinos, right?
Correct. And so that's where things get a little bit interesting. But again, one of the propositions that was on the ballot this election came into building a new casino on the Bagnell Strip at the Lake of the Ozarks,
By the way,
which,
your buddy Reed Leak just got on Twitter or TikTok and said, "I heard Sean was going to open the casino down by the Osage River." So, thank you,
well,
Reed.
I'd love to, and I'm interested to see how that proposition goes as well.
Yes, definitely.
When I lived in California, you would have thought I would have thought that legal sports betting would have been huge in the state of California. That was actually on the ballot when I lived there, and that failed while I
Really?
lived there by a
Wow.
hefty margin.
Wow.
So it is, again, it is interesting to kind of see where that. I know that the first, it was weird, and I don't know how this works, but this was just on Google earlier, so I saw that it was like they had 70% reporting on Prop 3. That Prop 3, it failed, but then, and it was like 70% of the votes were counted for it. That probably wasn't very accurate, but then um, there was not enough data on Prop 2. The things that I have seen was at least that Prop 2 was not passing, but that was also with less than 1% reporting. So um,
This
it'll be very
this amendment. Let,
interesting.
I want to go on this. So where the sports books put a lot of money to Amendment 2. Um, the pro life people went crazy on Amendment 3. I mean, of course, even, and I was kind of surprised. Last week or 2 weekends ago, I drove Uber down in St. Louis, and I was really surprised in like in like some of the residential areas and rural areas, and even in some of the urban areas there in St. Louis and North County, the number of vote no on Amendment 3 signs that I saw, and amazingly enough, this is something that really struck me in St. Louis, was seeing the vote
Mm-hmm.
no on Amendment 3 next to Harris wall signs. And
Mm.
that was baffling to me, because one of the things that Harris has ran on has been reestablishing, trying to, it was ignorant for her to say, though, just to say, I'm going to put a, bill through Congress that's going to, overturn the ban. She couldn't do that. But anyway, this thing, I think Amendment 3, I almost think it's going to be an 80-20, 90-10 thing in Missouri, as far as,
Mm-hmm.
because, and a lot of people said, well, this is going to allow for abortion up until the ninth month. Okay, that's murder. Okay, I don't know any state that allows anything past month 6. I as
Right.
a,
Right.
Roe v. Wade established originally the trimester rule, and the trimester rule said that any state could do anything between month 1 and 3. 3 to 6, they could put reasonable expectations or reasonable limits on it. And Roe v. Wade said anything after 6 months, because that was in 1974. And even in 1974, life could be sustained outside the womb at 6 months. And so now with this amendment, I think, and I'll be upfront and say, I voted against Amendment 3 because it just, to me, the wording was just way too vague. I mean, I believe in rape, incest, and the health of the mother. Those are always going to be my three, but I think there was to play devil's advocate on Amendment 3, I thought there was a lot of scare tactic that was being put in there because of the whole transgendered. This is going to allow for kids to be to do transgender reassignment, and I'm reading this, and there's nothing in this amendment that says anything about LGBTQ or transgender or gender reassignment or anything like that. So I don't know if that's just, again, scare tactics of the other side and saying, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this is how we're going to play it. But what were your thoughts on 3?
Um, I'm in the boat with you. The language on it was worded very interestingly. I did like the inclusion of on the ballot that it said, if not get if it does not pass, that it still protects the rights of women, um, for their safety, for the health of the mother. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was one of the biggest scare tactics from the people that were for Amendment 3. Um, just that I saw a lot of these really nasty campaigns, videos that were essentially like women in distress, and a boyfriend picking up a phone to call 911, and then some Republican senator grabbed the phone from him and said, "Nope, remember what we voted for. You cannot save the life of your
Yeah, yeah,
wife
yeah.
during things that are just blatantly not true."
Right.
And so as far as the language of you know including transgender procedures, what I'm seeing right here, um, and this is just on a Missouri website, scrolling through here, anti-amendment 3 ads in Springfield claim the measure legalizes partial birth abortions, which again we know are not true.
That's not true.
Um, but this is a legal expert's interpretation of Amendment 3. Opponents of Amendment 3 Some are arguing that the term reproductive health care is very broad and could include gender affirming care, and it's not clear that it is reasonable interpretation at all because gender affirming care is generally unrelated to pregnancy, the desire to become pregnant or to terminate a pregnancy,
Right.
said McCormick. They're just not the same things at all. So again, it is taking the problem with some of these amendments when you use broad terms. People are going to take advantage of the fact that you're using broad terms and use them to their liking. So, of course, when it's talking about reproductive rights, they could make the argument, that, hey, they are going to do everything that they can with this amendment to continue to do work on transgender men that are transitioning to women so that they eventually can become pregnant. Yeah, that's the kind of shit that these people fear monger together. When we just know those things aren't necessarily
Right.
true.
Not possible. Right.
Um,
Right.
so again, it is taking what the actual issue is, and the issue is here is stating clear language of, hey, when when is too late for these abortions, and the most important thing is we have to protect the mother, and then essentially also we need to protect the baby that is growing inside of the mother. And again, I am a firm believer that states should have the rights. Again, it's one of those unfortunate things where I
The
wish it could be a black and white. Here's the language. This is what the language of what it is. We're not making it difficult for you to understand. It is about pregnancies. It is about abortion. It is not about gender affirming care
Mhm.
in schools, and that was just kind of the message that was pushed. So it'll be very. I'm fairly certain that one will not pass.
Right.
Just based off everything that I've seen. But you're right. I even in Hannibal, there were a lot more Harris Walt signs in Hannibal, Missouri, than I thought that I would have actually
Right.
seen. But I'm in the same
Same
boat
here
with
in
you. I in
Louisiana
some
too.
of
Yeah.
in some of those yards, I also saw vote no on 3. So
One of the before we go off tonight, so now for those of you who'll be listening to the podcast later on, so now at 9:15, um, so we have 190 Axios is showing one which is NPR as well, in 198 109. Fox is at 205 117. CNN is still 172.81. Um, just this is too early. It's way too early for Trump to be taking a victory lap because
mhm.
number one, you still have within the next hour. Well, polls that have already closed. Arizona is closed. Harris is ahead by in Arizona. Harris is ahead by 16,000 in Wisconsin. Trump is behind. Looks like about 2,000, 2030. Okay,
Wow,
which that's with 44%. Michigan is starting to open up a little bit. Um, well, looks like about 16,000, but again, there's only 17% of the vote. If you wake up tomorrow and there's a president that has been declared, and I've said this to my students, I'm going to be very surprised if we know the outcome of this election by the end of the day tomorrow, because
yeah,
like you said, we could. I mean, we could have a 272. It's very possible to see a 270, 268. And one other thing I want to bring up too, right now as the Senate sits, majority, it's 47 to 36 right now in the Senate. We have had one flip um,
to the Republican Party.
to the Republican Party, which was in West Virginia, which was kind of that was Senator Elliott from West Virginia, who was incumbent there for, and this new I don't know who Justice is, but he's blowing the incumbent out of the water. As far as the where's the incumbent Nebraska is looking like it's going to flip, but to an independent. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, the incumbent Fisher, Senator from Nebraska Fisher, is down about 19th, actually about 20 plus thousand votes, which that's interesting. Um, the nothing else surprising there. Bernie, they've declared Bernie the winner in Vermont again. Way to go, Bernie. In the House right now, it's one. Of course, the House is up for re-election every 2 years, regardless. And right now, the count in the House right now is 123 to 85, and that's we haven't even got to California. We haven't gotten through, So that'll be interesting. If you wake up tomorrow and you say, "Hey, the guy's missing," I'm going to stand by my guns and say that this is going to be, oh geez, they just changed Wisconsin
to Trump.
to Trump. So now Trump has 700. It's still within 0.3 percentage points. 700. So it went from. So now Trump has 760,000 of the votes, and Harris has 755. So, just as I was sitting here talking to you, that just boom, just like that, just changed just now. Georgia looks
so
like.
I don't know how accurate this is. It claims it's accurate. It's been accurate in the past, but I am currently looking at it is a betting site called Polymarket.
Mm-hmm.
And Polymarket is the betting odds of the election.
Mm-hmm. What are they
which
showing?
Right now, and this I have been watching this earlier this week. It was leaning at what was interesting actually is that it actually lined up pretty much exactly like my internal polls did, where it said Trump was about 59. It would go back and forth between 59 to like 61% chance of winning versus Kamala Harris's. Throughout the night, I have been watching it. Has steadily risen, but within the last, let's see here, this is within the last hour. When I looked, but when we first started, Trump was at 70%. Now the betting odds are showing 90.3% betting odds are on Donald Trump winning the presidency. Wow. And 9.6% odds on Kamala Harris. But what's interesting, though, is that, again, and this is why I just say I don't know how accurate this is necessarily, because the prop bets that are on here right now,
what are
swing states, it's showing that, it's 90 to 10 Trump over Harris in Arizona, 91% to 9% Trump getting the bets in Georgia, 82% to Harris's 18% in Michigan. So again, those numbers are
so basically, so you're saying the over under now is way basically, if you make this is so interesting. Pennsylvania just flipped from blue to red.
Yep, that's on here as well.
Yeah.
And what's funny is the popular vote winner. What was interesting about this is actually Harris was 60% popular vote winner versus 40% Trump. But here's this. That was a week ago. Now the popular vote winner, Trump is at 50%, Harris is at 51% of being the popular vote winner. That number has substantially balanced out.
And Fox right now is showing the popular vote on the screen right now at 43,335 to, they just pulled it off, but it was about the number that you were saying, and they just updated their number 205,117. CNN is still playing it close to the vest, which I knew they were going to. But, if you wake up tomorrow and I've been proven wrong 1,000 times over the history of this show, which I'm not opposed to being proven wrong. It's going to be tomorrow when we wake up, we'll see that the world is, we haven't totally gone to hell in a handbasket, and that we may still have some inkling of democracy still left in this country. So hopefully democracy works. We have a peaceful transfer of power.
Of course.
And
I want your opinion before we get off of here.
Mm-hmm.
One about the Red Mirage, your thoughts on that, because I'm seeing a lot of more left-wing individuals, just that's what they're pushing right now is don't fear, it's just a red mirage. I'd like your thought on that. but kind of last. But the other thing is, do we think? I know that I'm in the boat that you are. I don't think we know a clear winner. Unfortunately, this evening, like we used to be able to enjoy. But do you think that either campaign either party shows up to their party? Harris at Howard. I do not know where Trump's rally is happening at, but I do know that Harris is at Howard University.
Right.
Because I will never forget. I will never forget the infamous 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign party video footage. I don't know if you remember those, but
yes,
that was fun. Regardless
sour.
of what candidate you voted on, that was
sour.
Fun.
The term red mirage. I mean, I think when you said that, it just kind of reminded me of 2 years ago when we talked about the red wave that was supposed to have happened during, that people were so disenchanted with Joe that there was just going to be this overwhelming red wave. Right now I'm looking at as I'm looking at all three of these sources, CNN is playing it so because it's you don't have to be the head checkout clerk at Walmart to know that CNN leans left, and you don't have to be the head mechanic at Jiffy Lube to know that Fox leans right. As far as a mirage, well, there goes that. Iowa just changed from blue to red too. But I honestly think that they're kind of playing the same game that Republicans played back in 2020. This is all. Don't worry, this is all going to pan out in the wash. This is all gonna. Don't think where everything's going to be all right. I'll close with this, and you can close with what you want to too. My hope, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier. My hope is that democracy prevails, that the people's voice is heard. I didn't vote for Joe Biden in 2020, but I honestly believe and people may call me naive, but I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that Joe won that election. People, there's no way. I could say, I told my kids, is there voter fraud? Yeah, there was probably some voter fraud. But for 7 million votes, okay, democracy prevailed. As much as people tried to overturn it and I'm not saying Trump tried to overturn it, but those wingnuts that stormed the Capitol, tried to overturn it. And that to me was a threat to democracy. I want to see democracy prevail. And come what may tomorrow, I also hope, my hope against hope is that Trump doesn't go on a revenge tour. That's my, I don't think that we talked about whatever that plan was, that 2025 plan or whatever it was that we had talked about before, that people, the Heritage Foundation was cooking up and everything. That's my other hope, that democracy prevails, and that hope that Trump doesn't go on the revenge tour.
Yeah, and I am with you. I hope that regardless of the outcome of the election, I hope that both parties, accept the results of the election. I hope that the boarded up buildings in downtown Washington, D.C. Were just there for decoration and not put to use. I genuinely do. The one thing I could say is, regardless of how you feel about either candidate, be happy that today you were able to go to a voting booth, vote. There was not a gun to your head.
Right.
The alleged bomb threats that were coming in were from Russia, who clearly just have nothing better to do. They are losing a war, so they are trying to do their best to interfere with our elections again. it is a good thing that you are allowed to exercise your vote. Don't take what your neighbor voted for to heart. Don't think that anything that someone else is voting for is a personal attack on you. It is just individuals vote for what they feel like is important to them.
Right.
And just because we don't see eye to eye on things does not mean that we are enemies. It just means that we have differences. And so, with that said, regardless of the outcome, accept the outcome, love yourself, love your neighbor, be a friend, tell a friend, and we will talk about who the next sitting president of the United States is going to be next time we see him.
We'll see you guys later.
Thanks for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Check out our previous shows and clips on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.